Welcome back to another episode of the Evolving Hunter podcast. So pleased that you've chose to join us today. I think we're going to have a great episode. We're talking with Mitch Shirk, who is the host of the Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast. We got to know each other via mutual friends, and I was actually a guest on his podcast a few weeks ago, and I'm so excited that he's here to talk with us today. Thanks for joining me today, Mitch. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's a privilege.
Absolutely. So I would love to kind of open the floor to give you a chance to introduce yourself, what you're into hunting, what you're into with your podcast, whatever you feel is a great way to introduce yourself.
Sure. So Mitchell Shirk, I'm from Southeast Pennsylvania, and I've been fortunate enough that I've grown up hunting. I mean, from the time I could walk and talk, I was interested in hunting. Apparently, this is what they tell me, and I was fortunate enough to tag along with family. I have family that hunt on both sides. Mom and dad, and had a lot of mentors and people that helped guide me through some of that stuff over the years. And I've mostly just hunted Pennsylvania in the Northeast. I've done a couple, small trips and one big trip out of state, but for the most part, my hunting is the big game species of Pennsylvania. I would consider myself a pretty avid deer hunter, pretty avid turkey hunter, and I've been hunting bears pretty religiously and getting more into that. And those are the three things I spend the most time doing. As far as the podcast, I've had the podcast, the Pennsylvania Woodsman on Sportsman's Empire Podcast Network for about 5 years. It'll be 5 years this year in May. And it's been an awesome opportunity to share experiences, share knowledge, but it's also been a bigger platform for me to learn and receive from the guests that I have on the show and interview people. And there's been a lot of really cool things that have come from that podcast. And I think I've reaped the most reward from that. And it's been a pretty cool thing to meet a lot of cool people and stuff. But that's a pretty good synopsis.
I always love getting a chance to talk with folks who had that experience of growing up hunting, because you and I chatted before. I didn't start hunting until I was almost 30 years old. And so I'm very much that adult onset hunter. And so you had the experience where can you remember a time when you weren't hunting, or you started before you could remember?
No, this is no lie. So my dad grew up hunting, and it still goes hunting. He is not in it the same way that I am, that have the same level of interest. But his brother was my mentor, and still is in many ways. But his brother, I don't know the circumstances, but one time my parents were away, and my sister and I stayed with my uncle and my aunt for the weekend. And it was prior to turkey season opening. But I was gung-ho as all, and I wanted to go and do something with turkeys, right? So I remember it was a Sunday morning before church. I was 4 years old, and he took me up to the land that he hunted, and we scouted for turkeys, and he found one going, had heard one gobbling on the roost, and called this turkey in, and I don't remember much. I remember little pieces of it, but he tells the story, and it kind of sticks in my mind. I was sitting on his lap, and he called this turkey in, and he said the one time it gobbled before it was in sight, and it was that close that I jumped in his lap. But this turkey came in, and I do remember that turkey picking his head up over the log and kind of walking from right to left within shotgun distance. And if it would have been seasoned, it would have been up. But that was a core memory. And I heard him say one time, he said, I never took a kid in my life that sat still and was quiet at that age. He said, like you were. So that was one thing that's just how I was. I was wired for it. And I was fortunate enough to have some very good mentors.
If you're listening to this podcast, there's a good chance that you're either thinking about hunting for the first time or trying to get better at it. Either way, you need to start with the right foundation. And that's why I'm so excited for the Evolving Hunter podcast to be partnering with CertifiedHunter.com. Certified Hunter offers state-approved online hunter education that's built for real people, not just test takers. You'll learn firearm safety, ethical decision-making, wildlife conservation, and what it actually means to be a responsible hunter in the field. And here's the part that matters most. This isn't about checking a box. It's about showing up prepared, confident, and safe when the season opens. I didn't grow up hunting. I started later in life, and I can tell you firsthand that having clear, practical training makes a huge difference. Certified Hunter helps shorten the learning curve and sets you up to do this the right way from day one. So, if you're ready to take your first step into hunting, or you know someone who is, head to certifiedhunter.com/evolving hunter and get started today. Again, that's certifiedhunter.com/evolving hunter, and let's start the right way. That's an awesome story. So, having spent a lifetime of hunting, what is that thing or that secret sauce that really kind of bound you to it for so long? Because I feel like I'm a lot like other people. I have hobbies that come and go, things that move into my life, move out of my life, sometimes on a rotational basis. But particularly talking to folks who've been hunting their whole lives, what is it that keeps your head in the game there?
Well, there's more things that keep my head out of the game now than anything else. This isn't probably going to be the best answer for you, but it's the best answer I can think of. I truly believe, to an extent, it's just ingrained in me. This is a comparison I'll make. When I was in 7th grade, I got convinced that by a bunch of friends and influence that I needed to play football. My dad was a soccer player. He was my coach when I was, pee-wees on up through, but I was not a soccer player build, right? I was a fat kid when I was 12, 13 years old, and I was perfect for the offensive line. And everybody convinced me I needed to play football. So I tried it, and I did well, and I continued to play football into college. Now, I wouldn't trade the memories that I made for that at all. But at the same time, I can truthfully look back and say, I was never into football. I did it because there were people that influenced me that wanted me to succeed in it and liked to see me do it. And I had friends, and there was outside influence that kept me going. But I never had the fire and the drive to continue to play football. And like at this point in my life, I don't follow football. I don't watch it. I don't care. I don't know players. I don't know stats. It's just, it wasn't interesting to me. I liked being active. I liked aspects of playing the game. I actually hope that I get a renewal of that as my sons get into sports and I start to like sports a little bit more than I used to. But hunting, man, it didn't matter the time of day, the time of year, whatever it was. I was just, there's something about hunting and being in the woods that you cannot put into words. And if I try to, I wouldn't do it justice. I just love it so much. And it's just a fuel of being in nature. There's a fuel of man versus quarry, whatever you're after. There's something there that drives me. There's definitely a camaraderie aspect with people and hunting and sharing that. It's a bug. It's a drug. I don't know what it is, but it's just ingrained in me.
Would you say that it's having hunted so long that it's almost like builds into at least part of identity of being a hunter?
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
yeah.
I have made the case, and I've had to retract that statement a couple of times, but I have made the case in my life, like, if I'm not doing what I'm doing in order to make myself set up well to go hunting, what is the point of all this? Now, that's a little bit extreme, and I think I've gotten a little bit of wisdom that's changed my way of thinking, but I seriously, a lot about my life, especially before I had children, was all of this that happens in life is so I can hunt or because I want to hunt.
Yeah. I think I find that so interesting, and that, this podcast is really it's made for novice hunters, for folks who maybe didn't have the experience that you had, in that you can't remember a time where you weren't hunting, right?
Right.
They found something that they identify with in hunting and are choosing to pursue it, whether that be, as you mentioned, spending more time in nature, or the idea of procuring their own protein, through their, by their own hands and preparing that for their family, whatever the case may be. So I always find it so interesting how individuals sort of frame why they hunt, because oftentimes talking to folks like yourself that don't remember a time when they weren't, right? It often is a part of that identity, right? It's
Yes.
like, I'm a hunter. I've always done this. It's what I will always do. But if we look at what the motivations behind hunting across like a broad population, there's so many different motivations,
Yes.
but we all have a similar mission, right? In that being outside, learning really the paths and ways of nature in a lot of ways, because the attention you have to give in hunting to be to harvest something, and then of course the food aspect at the end. So very interesting. I'm glad you brought up turkeys, because that's what I really love to spend some time talking about today.
Sure.
We're coming up on spring turkey season. It'll be here before we know it. I'm very excited. I mean, obviously, spring turkey season is the action-packed part of turkey hunting. I shared with you before we hit record here that I had a chance to go to the National Wild Turkey Federation convention in Nashville a couple weeks ago, which my voice is still recovering from. But it wasn't my first time going to convention, but it was the first time that I've gone and really had the full convention experience, where I walked the floor every day out there on the convention floor with, I don't know, I'm making up a number, thousands of vendors. And the day I ended up having to leave kind of right as it was picking up, my job was done there. But the day I left, they were anticipating to have 100,000 people going to be in attendance of convention that day, which blows my mind. And I say all that to say this, I'm building here, that it seems to me, I've turkey hunted maybe 10, 15 times, not a ton. But it seems to me that turkeys in particular, for some reason, just gets in people's skin, and they're just passionate turkey hunters. Could you kind of share your perspective on why is it that turkeys really kind of capture the attention so heavily of folks?
I think there's two things. One, it's such a vocal creature, and there's a communication aspect to it that is like nothing else. People compare elk and turkey hunting similarly, because it's a combination of that. But I've hunted elk. I'm not an elk hunter. I've gone elk hunting. I did not get the same vibe. There's similarities, but it's a whole different world with the interaction and the behavior of a turkey and how you hunt it, that I think something about that early cool spring morning and gobbling and the sound that they make, it's just captivating. The other thing too, I think that is important, is in the fall season, in the harvest season, that is, there's so many things open to hunt, and it opens up such a wide window. The spring, it's your turkey hunting. That's all there is. It's spring gobbler turkey hunting. So I think that has captivated people because there's nothing else to hunt. So therefore their identity is within turkey hunting. And then they find all the other wonderful things that go along with that. I do love turkey hunting. It is a fun thing. I think because of the communication and the calling, I actually think turkey hunters are louder individuals and more prideful individuals than deer hunting, believe it or not. I don't mean that to sound ugly, but people really, really, really love to talk about their turkey hunting strategy, their turkey hunting successes, and how good of a caller they are, and all these stories, and more so than other thing. It's a very niche group.
It's funny you say that. From a loud perspective, going to NWTF, it is absolutely loud, because there are hundreds of turkey call manufacturers or makers there, and if there's not someone at their booth, then they're ripping on turkey calls. And so you walk in this big room and you just hear just turkeys everywhere. It's
absolutely
it's quite the sight to hear or see and hear. But so if, let's say you're a brand new hunter and you're looking for upcoming seasons, and turkey season is our next season coming up, is Is spring a good place to start as a turkey hunter, or would you think fall would be better for a novice hunter?
Oh, I think spring is a better time. The reason for it is they're a little bit more vocal. Turkeys are vocal in the fall. I've had some fantastic turkey hunting opportunities in the fall and cool experiences, but they're more vocal. It's a fun time of year to get in the woods. Um, I like getting people started in the springtime. In fact, it's been communicated with a lot of people that the spring turkey hunting is a great way to start new hunters in general, like the first hunt they ever go on, because of the interaction. Because it's not like with deer hunting where sometimes you're sitting and there's boredom and you're waiting and you're not doing anything in a tree stand. Turkey hunting, you can be a little bit mobile. There's an aspect of calling and answering and interaction there that I think really captivates interest for people. And that's how I've taken a number of people that way. And yeah, I think spring is a great time to start.
So as it relates to calling, this is something that I've been learning as a new turkey hunter. There's a lot of different calls out there, and some require a little more skill than others, for sure. If you were a brand new turkey hunter or taking a new turkey hunter out, what calls would you kind of push them toward, types of calls that may help them kind of find more success in their first year?
Man,
is that a loaded question?
Well, it is a loaded question because, and this is no knock to anybody, there's a lot of people that would answer this question the way you would want it to be answered. For me, the most important thing for turkey hunting is not calling in the first place. It really isn't. So I'm going to answer this question two ways. I'm going to answer it the way you intended, and then I'm going to answer it the way my mind works. So the way that you answered it, the two calls I think are the easiest to learn and make good sounds. Number one are a box call and a slate or glass call. Now, for those of you who aren't familiar, a box call, there's a paddle on top of a rectangular box, and you're going to run that friction call. A lot of time you'll put chalk on it to increase the amount of friction, and you're going to run that along a concave edge of that box, right? And it's going to make a turkey sound. And it doesn't take a lot of practice to get clucks, yelps, and things like that, make turkey sounds with it. It's a simple call. As simple as it is, I took my 5-year-old with me last year, spring turkey hunting, and gave him my box call, and he made turkeys gobble with it. And he never ran it before until the moment that we were sitting there turkey hunting. It can be done. The slate or a glass call is, you're getting a striker, whether it's a carbon based, a wood based, sometimes there's glass strikers, there's all kinds of different materials, but you're going to get this little circular pot type call that's going to be covered in, most of the time, slate, glass, there's other materials, but you're going to run that pencil looking striker across that and create friction and make a sound. And you're going to try to make turkey sounds. It's easy to make purrs, it's easy to make clucks, yelps, and a host of other sounds. Those are the two easiest calls to pick up. You can get them affordable, you can get expensive ones, but regardless of what you get, you can get something well placed, and you don't have to have a lot of experience and man hours to be able to make a turkey sound. So that's the first part of the question. But to me, the most important turkey call is not necessarily like the calls you would think of in turkeys. I think some of the most important turkey calls are going to be things like scratching the leaves when you're set up on a turkey, or it's going to be patience, or it's going to be woodsmanship. Those are more important to me to turkey hunt. Nobody talks about those because the very attractive thing, like you experience at NWTF, is every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to run their call and show you how good their call is for you to purchase that call and for you to see, oh, I can make all these fantastic turkey sounds. And there's some really great callers out there, turkey callers that are way better than me. But I don't think calling is the most important thing with turkey hunting. And there's people who will disagree with that. And this is just my opinion. turkey hunting is not just about calling.
That's a great answer. I love that. So in that same vein of like, I guess, equipment to turkey hunt, uh, you look online, if you Google turkey hunting, you'll see a thing on calls, right? Of course, you'll see lots of information on calls, and you'll see information on decoys. Do you find decoys necessary? Are they optional for a new hunter? What's your opinion on that?
I think it depends on the setting in which a turkey hunter is going to hunt. If you're going to go and do what they call run and gun hunting, where you're going to be on your feet, listening for turkeys, trying to move in, make a setup at a tree and hide yourself and call a turkey into that setup, and it might be a wooded timber, maybe you've got some terrain or something like that. I don't like to use decoys, and there's a couple reasons why. Number one, it's a cumbersome thing to carry. Number two, I've just had a lot of inconsistent response from turkeys. Now, if you are fortunate enough that you've got some farms or some family land and there's some open field settings and stuff like that, I've had better luck using decoys in those settings. But when you talk about getting into turkey hunting, just like anything else, we can get carried away with the gear that we take. Yeah. There was a time when I went turkey hunting, you thought I was going on a backpack trip for at least 3 days because I took too much gear. More recently, I take my trusty shotgun that I trust. I take enough camouflage to A, keep me warm, and B, cover myself head to toe and make sure I've got nothing that is showing skin. So I've got gloves and a face mask and stuff like that. I do carry your 3 common types of calls. So I have mouth diaphragm calls. I like to use those. I find myself using those a lot. And then the 2 friction calls, I do take one of those, and I like different sounds because you'll find turkeys sometimes respond to one better than the other, and it's just the mood that they're in. But aside from that, the other most important thing is a good quality pair of boots. But I have my bases covered, and I try to be as minimalistic as possible and go with that.
So when you're set up there, if you're staying still, going back to calls, what is sort of your call strategy for getting birds to respond?
So calling for me, I am not an aggressive caller for turkeys. I think this goes back to when I started turkey hunting. I used to give you context of why I turkey hunt the way I do. The first few years when I was a young kid, I was successful and shot turkeys. And I had it in my head that I wanted to switch and harvest one with the bow. And I spent a lot of time sitting in a single location over a food plot or a field or something like that with decoys. And I just sat there. So I started out calling a lot. And then as years went by, I called less and less and less. And I found that softer calling and starting that way is a little bit more beneficial for me. So some people have differing opinions. So my approach is I start off light, slow, softer tone. And I try to gauge what a turkey is giving back to me. You know, there's a lot of nuances, and for a new hunter and try to explain this to it, I struggle to think about how I handle situations. I think the time of day is important. Is this on the roost? Is this 7-8 o'clock when he still has maybe some hens with him? Is this later in the morning? There's a lot of things that change that, but generally speaking, I think it's really common. You'll hear people at an NWTF or a convention center, and they're making turkey calls like this. They're going, they're yelping, they're cutting, they're cackling, they're doing all kinds of stuff like that. There's nothing wrong with those calls. I am one where I will do shorter durations of yelps when I start, and I do clucks, and I do under your breath type calling, and I try to gauge the volume accordingly. I don't want to blow a turkey out of the proportion. There are times where I will increase my excitedness and my cadence, but when I start talking with turkeys, most of the time I'm doing things like this. Low and under my breath. And I have found that that is realistic. Is it the glamorous turkey calling that makes great television and excitedness and everything else? No, it's not. But I have found that I've brought more turkeys into shotgun range and harvest doing things and starting that way and then building from there.
Do you change it up? So in my experience, I've had some great, super fun experiences where you're ripping some calls a little bit and you're getting that response and it's exciting and you get the jitters a little bit, but then they hold up, just not moving. Do you change that strategy a good bit when they kind of hold up and aren't coming towards you, but you know they're there?
Absolutely. Sometimes the best call is to not call at all. And that's kind of what I was going back to when you first asked me about calling. If you talk with a turkey and he answers you, and maybe he moves back and forth, maybe he comes in closer, but he just seems to hang up. Most of the time, hens go to gobblers. It's not always the case. If that were the case all the time, we would never call a gobbler in and shoot him. But it is very common that the hens will go to gobblers, and he is getting to a certain point, and he is trying to get you to come to him. Now, side piece to that, sometimes turkeys hang up because there's something impeding them from coming to you. Let's say there's a huge blowdown or thick terrain or a vegetation edge or a creek, or sometimes physical barriers limit a turkey's desire to come any closer. But there are also times where a turkey gets to a place where he doesn't want to go any farther. He can see, he's comfortable, and he wants you to come that last little bit. And in those moments, in my opinion, not calling at all, there's three things I like to do if it suits. Number one, I like to shut up. He knows you're there, and when you're not answering him and he's gobbling on his own and you don't answer him, I have found that turkeys will break sometimes and they'll come in to investigate. Where did you go? The second thing I like to do is I like to scratch leaves. I like to take my hand, I like to take a stick, and if it's a deciduous forest of some sort with a duff matter in, just scratch like there's turkeys feeding and move my hands in there. The last thing I will do is everybody, when a turkey hangs up, they love to give the same yelp. A lot of time it's this. That same 5 or 6 note yelp. And they keep giving that. And every time they give it, he gobbles. And they think, man, he's coming. But he just doesn't. They give the same note. Turkeys don't do that in real life. Like, turkeys don't just give the same call, the same volume every time. So what I like to do is I just do simple clucks. And that's all I'll give him. And when he's looking for something, that's all I'll give him. The last thing is if you can move. And I'm not talking moving like in closer. Like, let's say you think he's 100 yards away. I'm not talking cutting the distance in half. I'm talking going from the tree you're at and moving 10 yards. Because turkeys don't naturally stay in one area. And you don't think that 10 yards is a big deal. But moving 10 yards to a different tree and giving a cluck, a purr, a yelp, a scratch in the leaves, and it moves, just adds realism to the turkey setup that you're in. And I think those are things that help bring turkeys in.
That's awesome advice, because I've made that mistake before.
We all have.
Patience. Yeah. I think I may have told this story before on the podcast, but we were hunting turkeys with a friend once, and we had a gobbler just screaming at us, and it was great. We thought, man, he's on a rope, right? This is good. But then he just stopped, and then we were not patient. And so we're kind of up on a ridge. We started kind of real slowly moving down the ridge, and we ripped a kind of a small little quiet call, and he was just on the other side of the bush, and we were busted. He was coming. He just wasn't coming on the timetable we had in our heads. And that was the end of that. It was the end of that hunt right there. he was gone.
We've all done it. Everything that I'm sharing with you are things that I have learned by making mistakes and trying to correct them. And I still make mistakes every year. And anybody who turkey hunts and says they don't make mistakes is full of it. You know, I think the more you do it, the better you get. But it's an animal, and you still make mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to go back just a little bit because I'm trying to hit the high points, right? The basis of kind of getting ready for a spring turkey hunt. We mentioned camo. Can you speak a bit about the importance of camo, particularly when it comes down to hunting turkeys?
So the most important camo, in my opinion, is the setup that you have in the first place. So if you get into an open hardwood setting and there's no trees and there's no cover and you sit there, I don't care if you have the most expensive camo that's on the market. If you don't have something that breaks up your outline and gives you natural cover a little bit, and I'm not talking you need to be in bushes that you can't see out of it, but have something that has some structure to your setup, that is going to be really, really hard to not get picked off. Turkeys have incredible eyesight, and any little bit of cover that you can have to cover yourself is a big deal. But for me, I've gone through a number of different thought processes, and I'm not 100% sure where I stand. The most important thing to me is just making sure I break up shadows, break up outlines, and anything that would like cause a break. Like, for instance, if you wear a long sleeve shirt and pants, but you've got nothing to cover your face and you've got no gloves, turkeys can differentiate a little bit of a difference there. Here's something that people don't think too. What is the gun that you're carrying, or are you wearing glasses, and are those things going to create a glare or a glimmer? Those are things you might want to address just to break up an outline. I think that goes a long way. And then as far as the camo pattern, I think you just got to relate your camo pattern to what the timber looks like when you're hunting. Most of the time when you're spring turkey hunting, there's a light green color because there's a tinge of new green leaves being placed on the trees. And I think that if you can get something that's light green with a couple of light browns in there, it mixes up very well. I don't believe that the camo pattern itself is the most important thing. I think it's the outlines and then the non clothing pieces that you take into the woods, like a gun and calls, and just the setup itself is a bigger deal. The last thing I'll say when it comes to the clothing piece of it, get yourself a good pair of boots, a good pair of hiking boots. You know, if you're going to be somebody listening to this and you're going to go the route of hunting public land, big tracts of land, and you want to cover ground and stuff, take care of your feet. I was somebody who did not take care of my feet for a very, very long time. And I tell you what, the first time that I invested in a good pair of boots, I felt stupid because I waited that long to have a good pair of boots to hike.
Absolutely. Yeah. It makes a huge difference. Keeping your feet dry, keeping your feet warm. It makes, it could change your day.
Yes.
If you don't have those things, for sure. Could you walk us through, what do you do to prepare for spring turkey season? What's, scouting or preparing your equipment? What's sort of your system?
Well, what I do versus what I should do are usually two different things, because I do get a little bit lazy sometimes. So I'm going to tell you what I should do. Okay. So just from my turkey hunting, I work a job that's very busy during the month of May. So my turkey hunting is generally weekends and maybe an hour or two in the morning during the week before I go to work. So what I like to do in the places that I hunt for nearly a month leading into turkey season, our turkey season usually starts the Saturday closest to May 1st. So for the month of April leading into that season, I try to scout. And what does scouting mean for me? Scouting for me, if I have a route that I take for work and I'm in a different geography, I just want to, first of all, know the place that I'm hunting. Okay, if you're going to go and hunt a piece of public land for turkeys, for anything, and you don't know the woods, you are putting yourself into a rough position where not only are you trying to hunt a specific game animal, you're also trying to learn, how do the woods lay? Where's the terrain? Where are the places that you can't walk with any sense? Where is the water places that's impassable? Where's the thick cover that's tough? Where's the open hardwoods that if you walk across this, a turkey is going to see you? So I like to try to take the places that I'm hunting and try to know as much about them as possible, because you will find that that makes it a whole lot easier to paint a picture of, if a turkey gobbles at you during season, where is he? And what do the woods look like? And how can you position yourself that where you think he is, he's not going to see you when you move, and you get to a position where you can call to him. So just knowing the woods is very, very important. The second piece to the scouting is I like to know, what are turkeys doing? Where are they roosting? Where are they gobbling in the morning? Is that staying consistent, or is it changing across the month? And with the scouting, the last piece is, where is the feeding sign? And feeding sign to me is always just going to look like somebody took a leaf blower through the woods and they just blew leaves all over the place, and they're fluffed up here and there's bare dirt here, and it's turkey scratches. Because turkeys, when they go through, they're this messy creature that just scratches to the bare ground. They peck at stuff, they peck at insects, they peck at nuts, they peck at seeds, so on, buds, so on and so forth, and then they move through. And I'm going to look for those places. And those will change throughout a hunting season, but those are great places to find turkeys. If you go into spring turkey hunting, and this is one of the things that I think people get misguided on first. If you go into the turkey woods with the logic of, I just got to find one gobbling and then call him in and I'm going to shoot him, you're going to struggle. Can you kill turkeys that way? 100%. You will kill more turkeys if you understand the woods, if you understand food sources, if you understand terrain, and then hunt around those areas or spend time in those areas. You will kill more turkeys, in my opinion. So those are the things I like to look for. Now, fortunately for me, the places I hunt haven't changed a lot, and I learned the woods pretty well. It's just a matter of how many turkeys are here, are they gobbling, where are they feeding, what's that timeline behavior. I don't always do a good job of keeping up with that, but that's what would be ideal.
So obviously safety is a big component of what we talk about on this podcast, and for novice hunters, what are the biggest, and to you, safety considerations for getting started in spring turkey season?
Don't keep anything that's red with you, not even a red handkerchief. That is a color. Blue is another color. That's a big no-no in the world of safety, because those are colors that look like turkeys. Don't gobble to alert turkeys. I get concerned with the amount of companies that are producing calls that are gobbler calls, gobbler tube calls. They are effective. Don't get me wrong. They are calls that are effective and can help with you. But if you're going to hunt public land or pressured land or other, private land, but other people hunt it, that can create a bad situation, or it can put you in a tough situation with other hunting pressure. Keep standard gun safety. Turkey hunting is probably the hunting that you hear the most accidents from, and a lot of the time it's from not identifying your target. So identifying your target. Last thing I'll say is, every state's different in how they handle your laws with how you set up and how you move through the timber in relation to having orange. Pennsylvania, I don't believe you need to have orange anymore. I actually forget what the rules are. And the reason that I don't worry about the rule, it sounds bad, but the reason I don't worry about the rule is because I usually go a little bit on the extreme side, and I always wear an orange hat. The only time I don't wear an orange hat is when I'm set up on the turkey, and I just feel it makes me more comfortable. Will a turkey see me from 150 yards away? Maybe. I don't care. If it's not the orange hat that's going to give him away if he sees me, is the way I look at it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there as it relates to, proper target identification, because there are unfortunately hunters that don't practice that, and they see the the potential of turkey, not necessarily turkey, and then they take their chances. It's amazing. I
100%.
saw a video recently. It was a hunting like promo ad, and there's the slow-mo walk through the woods, and this guy has like a decoy on top of his backpack, a turkey decoy, right? With a whole with a fan and the whole bit. I'm like, my goodness, that would be terrifying and not very smart to do, to make yourself look like a turkey while walking through the turkey woods. Yeah, because you're right. We hear stories every year about incidents happening because there was a failure to identify your target appropriately, and people end up shooting one another, thinking they're trying to shoot at a turkey. That's awful.
It is, but it happens all the time in the world of the industry of what's cool when it comes to calls and, reaping turkeys and fanning turkeys. And for those of you who don't know what that is, don't worry about it. But for those of you who do know, it's an exciting thing, yet dangerous thing in certain situations. So, safety is most important. And turkey hunting is a very safe thing. Just make sure when you go into the woods, don't let and this is any time with hunting, to never let your excitement outweigh safety. And that is what usually lands problems with hunting, is people forget about safety and common sense things and where they point a firearm and general firearm safety. And if that is any way, shape, or form something that you're not 100% comfortable with, take a little bit more time before you go hunting. Worry about gun safety first before you enter the woods and go hunting.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's nail on the head again. Absolutely. So we mentioned public lands already. So as it relates to hunting spring turkey on public land, what do you think folks should know about getting out and being on public land?
We talked about a lot of good things already. So we started this podcast, we went into calling, and that's where everybody goes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Calling is an important thing. But to me, I think the way you find yourself more success is understanding the biology of the animal just a little bit. What do they eat? What do they do on a morning routine? So for the state of Pennsylvania, first light is somewhere between 5 and 6 o'clock in the morning. As the sun's waking up, turkeys are gobbling on the roost. They fly down, and generally speaking, there's a duration of time in the morning where the hens and the gobblers get together. There could be a little bit of breeding action and some strutting action and things like that. And there's usually a little bit of feeding that goes right off the roost. And that may happen a few hours. And then things will sometimes shift. Sometimes the feeding will stop, or sometimes the breeding is hot and heavy in the morning, and the sexual attraction that they have goes on longer, and feeding happens later in the morning, and it ebbs and flows throughout the morning. And I think just knowing what is the food source, what is the area that they're spending time in because of the food source, what is what's the terrain like? Is there people going in and out of a place that is an easily accessible place that a lot of pressure could incur from other hunters? Those are all things to consider before you even break a call out. Just knowing that. A lot of time that comes into just spending a little bit of time in the woods. It's not the glamorous stuff. It's the work part. It's the putting boots on the ground, walking around, learning the woods, understanding what are they doing, learning to read turkey sign. And a lot of the time you learn as you go. You see a turkey do something, you hear a turkey in an area, you go to that area. What's all this dug up stuff over here? And you come to find over time, oh, here's tracks over here. These are turkeys. That is more important. That carries weight in gold, in my opinion, if you can learn the behavior of the bird and how they go. That's a big one. The calling, I kind of talked about how I like to call. Jay is going to have way better turkey hunters than me discuss how to actively and effectively call to turkey hunters. And you can get there's tons of podcasts and there's tons of information about there that go into more depth over calling and communicating with turkeys. But for me, what I like to do on public land, and keep in mind the Pennsylvania mountains that I like to hunt, I think the easiest way to do this is I'm going to share with you my strategy this coming spring. So there's an area that I'm going to try to focus on turkey hunting as much as I possibly can with the time I have. And it's because I harvested a bear and a deer there, and I want to shoot the turkey in that same area. So I am going to start the process in the area where I saw the most turkey sign in the fall and the most forage in the fall. There was a heavy red oak acorn crop. And believe it or not, even though that's falling in the fall and goes into winter, sometimes the crop is heavy enough that turkeys are still foraging on acorns in spring. Now, I'm still going to check into other areas, whether it's a disturbance from, a prescribed fire or a chop off or some kind of, reason or other vegetation that has turkeys in that area. But I'm going to look for those areas first. I'm going to try to have an understanding of, is there any consistency in turkeys roosting? I'm going to listen in areas, and then I just want to know within the area of sign, where are places that I can maneuver with the terrain, not be seen, but I can move in and set up on a turkey. And is there places that I can call a turkey in? Let's just give you this example. There's plenty of places where you'll be on the top of a ridge, you'll listen, and you'll hear a turkey on another ridge. And you'll go and you'll cut the distance in half, and you get to a section of woods and you think, this looks like a turkey could come through it. I'm going to sit here. Little did you know that there was a massive pass of down trees or something that a turkey just didn't want to go through that, or there was a giant rock outcropping. There was something that just wasn't that captivating for a turkey to call in. And that's one of those things that as you turkey hunt more, I think you learn what's a good setup and what's not. But places of level ground and transitions and edges of terrain, I think, and vegetation for that matter, are good. I'll start high. I'll start a high elevation to listen for turkeys. Ideally, if I know the area that they've been roosting in, I'll go relatively close to that area. When it's the early part of the season, there's not a lot of leaves in the trees. That might be 300 yards away because I don't want to get too close and risk bumping them off the roost. Now, as the season gets later, I'm not afraid to get closer as the leaf vegetation is increased. But I'm going to try to get on a high point and listen where are those turkeys gobbling. I'm going to do one of two things from there. If I know where they fly down from my preseason scouting, I'm going to spend time where I've seen them fly down or heard them fly down. If I don't know where they're flying down, I'm hoping that my scouting and terrain layout in my mind, I have an idea of where could be a good flat spot or a good bench, or maybe this ridge is a feeding point and maybe they'll cross through there and I'm in the game here, and I'll make setups from there. The last thing I would say is if those roost hunts don't work, let's say you talk with the turkey and he's answering you, but he's got hens and he just doesn't want to commit. Turkeys remember for a very long time, within 12 hours, where that last sound came from. I've had turkeys come back to an area mid-morning that I hunted, and I just sat there the same time. I've also just gone for a walk and tried to find a bird that was ready to break away from the hens he was with and do the old-fashioned run-and-gun setup. I broke a lot down there. You might have questions, and I don't want to go rambling too much.
No, that's great. I think the moral of the story there really is have a game plan, because I feel like so often, particularly with novice hunters, you have your shotgun, you've patterned it, you've done that prep, and then from there it's just go into the woods and see what happens, right? That doesn't necessarily produce the results that you may be looking for. But I think you set a good example in that you have a game plan for a specific location that you've already scouted. You know where you're going to be at different parts of the season. All that is fantastic. So even if the game plan isn't perfect, because it's never going to be perfect, right? At least spending that time to create sort of a plan or a schedule or whatever the case may be will increase your chances of finding that turkey perhaps in your first season. So that's all really awesome information.
It absolutely will. And the last thing I will say is don't give up easily. I'll share a story with you. So I laid out the perfect scenario. rarely does the perfect scenario as far as preparation leading into the season and calling turkey, rarely does that completely work the way you think. Sometimes it's the unconventional way. A couple years ago, I was invited to a cabin and I went opening day. Now, I didn't know this area at all. Very, very vague knowledge of this area. But I decided that I was going to use this opportunity to explore. So what I did some map scouting. I looked for high points, low points, where do ridges run, and where are places that I could walk and just listen. Get an ear for where turkey could be, and hopefully put myself in an area that I could hunt. But I had the mindset that turkey season in Pennsylvania opens at first light and it closes at 12 o'clock noon for the first half of the season. I was going to hunt all day long, all day, the first half of the day. I spent the day walking in an area that I had scouted on the maps just to familiarize with myself. In the loop that I did from first light until about 9:30, I found very little turkey sign and heard 0 turkeys. I decided, let's go to a different area. And I mapped out a walk while I was sitting in the woods that would land me a perfect situation to put like a 2.5 mile walk on a ridge top that would potentially allow me to hear turkeys, move in on turkeys, but I'd be moving in the direction away from my vehicle back towards the camp that I was staying at. So was it the scouting and the vegetation and all that stuff that I talked about? Was it any of that? No, but it was an area that I could explore. And I had a route that I knew I wouldn't get lost. I was going from where I parked to where the cabin was, and I was just going to hike, hunt, explore, and learn as I went. I started that at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 11:15 in the process, I found a turkey gobbling on his own. Now, when I heard him, I did not call to him. I just heard him naturally. And I believe what probably happened, the morning was very rainy and wet, and I don't think turkeys were overly active in that weather pattern. And he may or may not have had hens with him for the first part of the day, but as that mid-morning time came and those hens left and maybe went to a nest or just left that gobbler, he was still lonely and he was looking for love. So he went into an area where he's continued to gobble and try to call to a hen. When he's out there strutting on a ridge where somebody can hear and he's gobbling on his own, he's calling to a hen saying, I'm over here, come to me. That allowed me to slip in, and I kind of gauged how close I was based on how loud he was calling, and used the vegetation in the woods. It transferred from a coniferous forest into a deciduous forest into an open hardwood forest. And I kind of just had a feel for, okay, I'm at the edge of this vegetative cover. If I go any farther, I'm too far in the open and he could see me. But I'm close enough that when I call to him, he's going to know where I'm at and he might come looking for me. And I plopped myself down at a tree. I made a soft call. Nothing. But I waited about a minute or two and I made another soft yelp, kind of like I showed on the call earlier, and he gobbled to me instantly. When he answered me, he heard me. He knew where I was. I didn't immediately call back to him. I just waited and I was patient. I waited not very long, 2, 3, 4 minutes. Gave him another soft call, a cluck, couple soft yelps. He answered me immediately. I waited a few more minutes. And I gave a different type of call, and this is more of your advanced types of calls, but it's called a whimper, and I probably can't even do it. I haven't used the turkey call in 12 months, but it just sounds like this. It's just like a whine. I just did that and a couple clucks. He gobbled again. And at that point, I'd called to him 3 times. I called to him 4 times. He answered me 3 times. The last time he answered me, he was closer. I put the call down. There was no need for me to call to him anymore. He knew where I was. He answered me. If he was going to come, he was going to come. The worst thing I could do was continue to call to that turkey, in my opinion, because the louder you are and the more obnoxious you are, that will excite him, and it transitions turkeys, in my opinion, sometimes that they think you're coming to him. For me, that's not always the case. I shut up. and within 5 minutes, he came walking into the sound where he had last heard, and I was able to put my tag on him. That was nothing like what I had talked about and what's ideal. You can run and gun if you're patient. I started hunting first light 5:30 in the morning. I shot that turkey at 11:20 in the morning. I didn't give up. And that's one of the biggest things is don't give up.
That's an awesome story. So I feel like we've gone through a lot in this 53 minutes we've been recording. Is there anything that you feel is just essential information for a novice spring turkey hunter that I haven't asked you about that you haven't had a chance to share yet?
We didn't really talk about gear and setup, and I'm not a gear and setup guru. I will say the shotgun that you choose to use should be the one that you feel most comfortable with. It shouldn't be the one that somebody tells you is the best. It shouldn't be the one that's the most expensive. It should be the one that feels good and shoots comfortable to you. And I would assume that if you're going turkey hunting, you've done a little bit of homework and done some practice. There are some excellent loads out there for different shotgun gauges. I've used my 12 gauge a lot, but I've shot turkeys with a 20 gauge, with a 28 gauge. And if you have the right choke load combination, you can do wonders. So, I mean, that's something to definitely consider. I'm assuming everybody does their homework and everything else before the season. A lot of research, and hopefully you're lucky enough to have a mentor that you can ask those questions. But I think the biggest thing for me is patience. Patience kills more turkeys than anything. And I know there are turkey hunters out there with more experience than myself and are better. And with the amount of experience they have a better feeling of when to move, when not to move, when to call, when not to call. I will just say that excited calling, from my experience in the turkeys that I have killed, excited calling, loud, fast, yelps, cackles, cuts, and stuff like that, that has killed probably 10% of the turkeys that I've harvested. The other 90% have been softer calling and everything else. And I think just being patient and waiting turkeys out. They're not that smart. People say turkeys are smart. I don't think turkeys are smart. Their brain is small. They're just instinctive with really, really good senses. And when they get in the mood that they want to come in, they will come in. Sometimes it takes 5 minutes and sometimes it takes 2 hours. I think being patient. And the last thing I'll say is be still. Do not move. Of all the big game species that I hunt, bear, deer, and turkeys have the best eyesight. The worst thing you can do is be fidgeting, be on your phone, be swatting at bugs. Sit still and don't move. And if you have your gun set up at 12 o'clock and a turkey gobbles at 10 o'clock, don't immediately move. Make sure you're looking out of the corner of your eye and you can't see anything, and move slowly if you have to transition. The worst thing you can do is be moving constantly. That chases more turkeys than anything.
That's awesome advice. Thanks so much for sharing your experience with us. That's, I think I really love the idea of hunters learning from other hunters, right? And the experiences that they've had. Do you want to share how folks can find you or the Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast?
Yeah, the Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Pennsylvania Woodsman podcast. I got to be real. I'm pretty poor with keeping up with some of the social media content. I try to do as well as I can keeping up, but you can find the show anywhere you listen to podcasts: the Google Play, the Spotify, the iTunes, all that stuff. It's on part of Sportsman's Empire Podcast Network, and you can also reach out to me. I'm pretty receptive via email. pawoodsmanpodcast@gmail.com. I encourage people to ask me questions and reach out. I appreciate when people reach out and ask. I like to help people with what I've learned and network with people who know more than me and direct you to them.
Well, thanks so much for jumping on and having a conversation with me tonight. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jay. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. If this episode resonated with you, please share it. Share it with someone who may be thinking about getting into hunting or someone who helped you get into hunting. If you want to follow along, make sure that you're subscribed to the Evolving Hunter podcast. We've got a lot more conversations and hunting stories coming, along with practical conversations about skills, ethics, and what it takes to grow as a hunter. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and keep evolving. I really hope you enjoyed that episode of the Evolving Hunter podcast. One last thing before you go. If you're thinking about getting into hunting, before you go and buy gear or plan a hunt, you need the right foundation. That's why we're so excited to be partnered with CertifiedHunter.com. They have state-approved online hunter education that teaches real-world safety, ethics, and responsibility, not just test answers. If you want to start hunting the right way, head to CertifiedHunter.com/evolvinghunter and get certified today.